All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty universal. Something everyone has to deal with at some point, interviews.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've got a really fascinating source for this one, all about how to really kind of just boost your English skills by understanding what makes a really successful interview. And for you, the learner, as always, we're all about just getting to the good stuff, getting smart quickly and, making sure that it really sinks in.
Absolutely.
And so we really want to just pull out those like essential strategies for you so that you can just navigate any interview situation really with confidence. Think of this as like your, like fast track, like your cheat sheet to like just mastering this whole interview thing. So we want to make sure that these are the kind of aha moments that like really stick with you.
Exactly. Interviews, they can be seen as like these big, scary evaluations, but there's so much more than that. There's really crucial interactions. They really can shape your journey. And that goes for your personal life and your professional life. So, really mastering these skills can genuinely open doors for you. And this deep dive is all about, equipping you, giving you those tools. So you're not just getting some surface level advice. You're getting these real actionable techniques that you can put into practice.
Yeah. And I think so many times, you hear the same advice over and over, and it's kind of like, all right, yeah, I know I should do that, but how?
Exactly.
So we really want to make sure we're getting specific and giving you concrete strategies, right?
Sure.
So, okay, let's kind of map out where we're going to go today, what we're going to explore. So we'll start by building a really solid foundation with preparation.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't really build a house without a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to really dive into how do you actually research a company and a role effectively?
Mm-hmm.
And then what are the kinds of questions that are probably going to come up, and how can you anticipate those? And, there's all sorts of different interview formats out there. So how do you understand those? And then, even things like how do you dress?
Yeah.
What's the appropriate attire? All that kind of stuff. And then once we've got that foundation, we'll get into those really core skills, those must-haves, communicating clearly, confidently, understanding that, your body language is saying something too. And really the art of listening, active listening.
Right.
And of course, we'll break down some of those common questions that everyone prepares for.
Yeah.
The ones that keep you up at night.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're going to get into the really interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle those those unexpected, those curveball questions, those tricky situations, right? So you're ready for anything. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So let's start with this idea of preparation because, our source makes this really compelling point that it's not just about, boosting your odds of getting the job. It's really about that inner confidence, that feeling of I've got this.
Absolutely.
And, when you're truly prepared, it's that pressure, that interview pressure, it almost transforms into an opportunity for you to just shine,
For sure.
and show them what you're made of.
When you walk into that room or, that virtual room, knowing that you've done the legwork, you've got this foundation.
Right.
It just changes the whole game. It just shifts that dynamic.
Totally. So what does that legwork actually look like? What does that preparation actually involve?
So the source, they start by talking about research, which I know can sound kind of basic.
Right.
But it's amazing how many people, they stop at, just a quick glance at the company's website.
Yeah.
And they kind of think they've got it.
Just a surface level? Oh, yeah, I know what they do.
Exactly. But our source, they emphasize you need to go way deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
You got to really dig deep. So you start with the mission statement, right? Don't just read it, dissect it. What does it actually mean in practice? Then, Look at their core values. Can you find actual concrete examples of them in action? That's when it gets interesting. And then take it a step further. Explore their recent achievements. Like, what are they celebrating? What are they proud of? And even try to understand what their future goals are. Like, where are they headed?
So it's really about, like, understanding their story.
Yeah, exactly. It's like reading between the lines.
Yeah, and it's showing that you're not just, passively absorbing information. You're actively engaging with it.
Absolutely.
You're thinking critically about it.
And the source gives a great example. They say, imagine you're interviewing with a tech company, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just know, like, what products they sell, what services they offer. You got to go deeper. So, have they released any new software updates? What are those about? What problems are they solving? Or have they been involved in any big, high-profile projects? Understanding those things, that's what allows you to really start connecting your own skills and experience to what they're actively doing and focused on right now. It just signals to them that you've actually done your homework. That you're genuinely invested. You're not just sending out applications to anyone and everyone.
Right. You're being really intentional about it.
Exactly.
And I think, to your point about understanding their story, the source also talks about understanding their culture.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's like, is it a place that, seems really collaborative? Like, are they innovative?
Right.
Or are they, maybe more traditional, more structured, more hierarchical? And, I think that understanding can really inform, everything from, like you said, what kind of words you use.
Your tone, your demeanor.
Yeah, exactly. Your whole approach, really.
It's like understanding those unwritten rules. You're showing them, hey, I get it. I see how things work here.
Right. You'd fit in.
Yeah. You're going beyond just the skill set. You're showing them that you could thrive in their environment.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the role itself, right?
The actual job.
Yeah. And our source really stresses, like really dissect that job description. Don't just glance at it.
Yeah. Don't just skim it.
Like really think about, what are the core responsibilities? What are those specific skills and experiences that they are like explicitly asking for? And then how does this role fit into the bigger picture? How does it contribute to the company's, overall goals?
Right.
And this is so important, not just so you can, tailor your answers and show them you're the right fit, but it also gives you the ammunition to ask really insightful questions.
Mm-hmm. And this raises a good point for you, the learner, listening right now. How thoroughly do you actually analyze a job description?
Yeah.
Because it's not just a checklist.
Yeah.
It's not just a list of requirements. It's actually like a window into what they truly value in this specific position.
Yeah. It's telling you what they're really looking for.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's talk about the part that I think, can be a little scary for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Those common interview questions.
Yeah.
The ones that we all kind of, like, dread a little bit.
Yeah, those can definitely induce some anxiety.
Yeah, but, while every interview is going to be different,
Yeah.
it's going to have its own unique flavor.
Its own twists and turns.
Yeah, exactly. Our source points out there are some like recurring themes, some questions that come up again and again.
You can pretty much bet on them.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this, of anticipating these questions, it's not about memorizing answers, Our source is very clear about that. It's not about sounding robotic or rehearsed. It's really about giving yourself the space, mentally, to really think through your experiences, to connect those experiences to what the interviewer is likely going to ask you. It's about really identifying those key selling points, those things that make you stand out.
Yeah, it's about clarity of thought.
Exactly.
So, for example, the classic, like, tell me about yourself.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Right. Seems simple enough.
Right. But our source, they actually highlight this one as like a prime opportunity
Right.
to make a really strong, really memorable first impression.
Right.
And the thing is, you got to be clear, you got to be concise, and most importantly, it's got to be relevant to the role.
Right. Right.
It's your chance to kind of weave together your professional journey, but those highlights, those key achievements, and you explain what specifically draws you to this opportunity, to this company.
Right. So it's not your whole life story.
No, no, no.
It's very targeted.
Oh,
right?
It's a focused summary that's really tailored to what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the one that, everyone loves to hate. What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it feels like a trick question sometimes.
But the thing is, with this one, self-awareness is like everything.
Right.
For strengths, the source advises, pick the ones that are directly related to the job. Don't just list random strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And for each strength, give a real concrete example of how you've actually demonstrated it. Don't just say, oh, I'm a good communicator. Show them.
Right. Give them proof.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then for weaknesses, that's where it gets really tricky.
Oh, for sure.
Because you want to be honest, right?
Right.
You don't want to seem like you're trying to hide something.
But the key here is honesty, but also a focus on growth.
Okay.
It's not about deflecting. It's not about pretending you're perfect.
Like,
It's about acknowledging that, you have areas to improve. And crucially, explaining what steps you're taking to address those areas.
so it's like, yeah, this is something I struggle with, but here's how I'm working on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Show them you're self-aware.
Right.
Okay, and then there's another one that, seems simple enough, but it's really important. Why do you want to work here?
Oh, yeah, they always ask that.
And our source points out it's not just a courtesy question.
No, they're really trying to gauge your interest.
Right.
They want to know if you've actually done your research, if you've thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
If your values, if your career goals actually align with their mission.
Right. It's about that alignment.
They want to see if you're genuinely interested in this company, in this work.
Right. It's not just about the paycheck.
No, exactly.
And then another big one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, yeah, the classic 5-year plan question.
And this one, it's about, understanding your vision, your long-term vision, and whether your ambitions actually align with, where they see the company going.
Right, with the growth opportunities within the company.
And I think the tricky thing with this question is, you want to be ambitious, right?
Yeah, and you want to show them that you're driven.
Yeah, that you're thinking ahead.
But you also have to be realistic.
Right, you don't want to overpromise.
It's about showing them that you have a clear sense of direction and that you see this role as a meaningful step towards achieving your goals.
Right, so it's about connecting, your personal goals to the company's goals.
Absolutely.
So the overall message here with all these questions is practice, practice, practice.
Right.
Focus on those key selling points, those things that make you stand out. And don't just memorize answers. Aim to sound natural. Aim to sound articulate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the different interview formats, because I think, sometimes this can throw people off.
Yeah, you walk in and you're expecting one thing and it's something totally different.
Exactly. So our source, they make a distinction between, kind of that traditional one-on-one interview.
Right, where it's just you and the interviewer.
And that one, typically is going to be a lot about your individual experience, how you might fit into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the dreaded panel interview.
Oh, yeah, where you're facing a whole group of people.
And that can be really intimidating.
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
Mm.
But our source, they give some good advice for handling those.
Oh, yeah?
They say the key is to just stay focused and make sure you're engaging with everyone on the panel, not just the person who asked the question.
Right. You're speaking to everyone.
It's about showing them you can communicate effectively in a group dynamic.
Yeah, you can hold your own.
Exactly.
Okay, and then, of course, we have to talk about virtual interviews because, Those have become so common.
Yeah, especially for remote roles.
Exactly. And our source has some really practical advice here. They stress the importance of just being completely comfortable with the technology.
So that means Zoom, Skype, Teams, whatever platform they're using.
Yeah, you got to be familiar with it.
And it's not just about knowing how to use it. It's about, making sure everything works.
Right.
So test your camera, test your microphone, make sure your internet connection is stable.
Yeah, you don't want any of those technical glitches derailing you.
And the source also talks about, your background and your lighting.
Oh, yeah, that's so important.
It sounds simple, but it makes a difference. You want a clean, uncluttered background. You don't want anything distracting behind you.
Right.
And you want to be well lit so they can clearly see you.
You don't want to be like a shadowy figure.
Exactly. And even though it's virtual, nonverbal cues still matter a lot.
Oh, for sure.
So make sure you have good posture, sit up straight, and look directly at the camera.
As if it were the interviewer's eyes. Yeah, you're still making that connection, even through the screen.
Right.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about something more kind of tangible, what to wear.
Ah, the age-old question.
And our source keeps it pretty simple, pretty straightforward here. They say, dress for success.
Which I know can sound a bit vague.
Right.
But they go on to explain, what that actually means. And it really comes down to reflecting the company culture while still maintaining a professional standard.
So you're not just wearing, like, whatever you feel like.
No. It's about doing your research.
Right. And if you're unsure, it's always better to err on the side of being, a little more dressed up.
Yeah, better to be slightly overdressed than underdressed.
Exactly. So, for example, a suit and tie or a professional dress might be appropriate for, a more formal setting.
Right, like a law firm or a financial institution.
But if it's a more creative environment or a more relaxed company culture,
Maybe a tech startup or a design agency.
then business casual might be the way to go.
Exactly.
But no matter what, as the source stresses, your clothing should always be clean, neat, and wrinkle-free.
Mm.
And pay attention to those little details, the grooming, the hygiene,
It all adds up.
because, your attire is the first nonverbal message you're sending.
It's telling them you take this seriously, that you respect their time and you respect the opportunity.
Right. It sets the tone.
Exactly.
Okay, so to kind of summarize this whole preparation piece, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just one thing.
It's about all these different elements working together.
So you've got the research, really digging deep into the company and the role. You've got anticipating those key questions, practicing your answers, understanding the format of the interview itself.
And presenting yourself professionally, from your attire to your virtual setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all of that builds up to that feeling of, okay, I'm ready.
That confidence that shines through.
All right, so you've laid that groundwork, right? You've got the preparation down. Now let's talk about mastering those essential interview skills, starting with, I think this is the core of it all, effective communication.
Yeah, communication, it really is the key. And our source emphasizes that it's not just about the words you use, it's about how you convey them.
It's how you say it.
It's about clarity and confidence in your expression.
And, I think one thing that can really trip people up is nerves.
Oh, absolutely.
And the source points out that those nerves can often show up as like rushing your speech or giving really vague kind of rambling answers.
Yeah, because you're just so nervous you want to get it over with.
Right.
But that doesn't do you any favors.
No, it doesn't help you at all.
And then on the flip side, some people get so nervous they freeze up and don't say enough.
Oh, yeah, they get stuck.
So the key is to aim for that delivery that is steady and well-paced.
And pacing is so important.
It really is. Speak too quickly and you sound anxious, and it's hard for them to follow.
They can't process what you're saying.
Exactly. And if you speak too slowly, you can sound unsure or hesitant.
Right.
So finding that natural rhythm, it takes practice. Our source recommends practicing out loud.
Yeah, you've got to hear yourself.
And then along with pacing, there's clarity and conciseness.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewers, they're busy people.
They don't have all day.
Exactly. They're looking for thoughtful answers, relevant answers, but they don't want these long-winded, meandering explanations.
Right.
The source suggests structuring your responses with a clear beginning, a middle, and an end.
Okay, so almost like you're telling a mini story.
Exactly. You're directly addressing the question, you're providing enough detail, but you're not getting lost in tangents.
Right.
And this is where the STAR method comes in.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a really useful framework.
Our source highlights this as being super helpful for behavioral questions, which for you, the learner, behavioral questions, those are the ones that are kind of asking you to tell a story about your past experience to predict your future performance. So can you break down, how does the STAR method actually work?
Sure. So STAR is an acronym. It stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. It's a structured way to answer these questions.
Okay.
So first, you describe the specific situation you're in. What was the context? What was the challenge? Then you outline the task you needed to accomplish. What were you responsible for? What was the goal?
Okay.
Then you detail the specific actions you took to address the situation and the task. What did you do? How did you approach it?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, you explain the result of your actions. What happened? What was the outcome?
And it's good if you can, quantify that, right? If there are numbers you can use.
Exactly. If you can measure it, measure it.
Yeah. And our source gives a really good example about improving customer service response times. So by using the STAR method, you can tell a really clear, really detailed, really impactful story that actually shows your skills in a real-world situation.
It's much more powerful than just making these general claims about what you're good at.
Right, you're proving it.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's move on to another really important skill. Mastering your body language.
Ah, yes. The unspoken language.
Because, as our source underscores your physical presence, it communicates a lot.
Maybe even more than your words sometimes.
Right. And those nonverbal cues like your posture, your eye contact, your facial expressions, they can really project confidence. They can project engagement.
But on the flip side, negative body language can totally undermine your message.
Yeah, you could have the perfect answers, but if your body language is saying something different,
it's not going to land the same way.
So posture is key, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sitting up straight, shoulders back, it instantly conveys confidence. It conveys focus.
Like you're present.
Whereas slouching, it can be perceived as a lack of interest, a lack of confidence.
And eye contact, that's huge, right?
Eye contact is everything.
It's how you build rapport, how you show engagement. You're connecting with the person.
You're showing them you're listening, you're confident, you're actively participating in the conversation.
Yeah, you're not just staring off into space.
And the source recommends finding that balance. Maintain eye contact, but don't stare intensely.
Right, don't make it creepy.
And do it both when you're speaking and when you're listening.
Yeah, you're showing them you're present throughout the entire conversation.
And don't forget about facial expression.
Oh, right, your face is talking too.
A genuine smile, it makes you appear more approachable, more positive. It shows you're enthusiastic.
You want to avoid looking too serious, too disinterested.
Even if you're feeling nervous on the inside.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
And another thing the source mentions is be mindful of nervous habits.
Oh, yeah, we all have them.
Like fidgeting, tapping your feet, shifting around in your seat.
This can be really distracting.
They can make you seem anxious.
So consciously trying to remain still, maybe rest your hands on your lap or the table.
Just look calm and composed.
Exactly.
And of course, for those in-person interviews, the handshake.
The classic handshake. It still matters.
It does, yeah. It's like a little ritual. And a firm handshake, but not too forceful, while making eye contact.
It shows professionalism, respect, confidence.
You don't want that limp handshake.
No, nobody likes a limp handshake.
Okay, so the third essential skill our source highlights is active listening. And this might seem obvious, but it's so important
It really is.
because truly engaging with what the interviewer is saying,
Yeah.
it's just as important as giving those, perfectly crafted answers.
It shows them that you value their input, that you're actually listening, that you're present in the conversation.
And our source suggests some really simple but effective ways to show you're listening.
Like nodding occasionally, maintaining eye contact.
And those little verbal affirmations. Right?
Yeah, like, I understand, or it's a good point.
Just those little cues to show you're following along.
And it encourages them to share more, which is what you want. You want them to tell you more about the role, about the company, about what they're looking for.
And then another really important part of active listening is asking clarifying questions.
Right. If you're not sure about something, don't be afraid to ask.
It shows you're thoughtful, that you want to give them the best possible answer.
Yeah, and there are phrases you can use, like, could you clarify what you mean by?
That makes it clear that you're really trying to understand.
And active listening allows you to tailor your answers.
Oh, yeah.
If you're really paying attention to what they're saying, you can pick up on those cues, those little things they emphasize.
And then adjust your responses accordingly.
Like, if they keep talking about teamwork, you know to highlight your collaborative experiences.
Right, you're speaking their language. So to recap, mastering that effective communication, that positive body language, and active listening, these are all integral components of a successful interview.
And they all work together to create that positive impression.
Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about those common interview questions that we all know and, maybe love a little bit.
Yeah, those ones we've all been dreading.
But as we talked about earlier, it's not just about knowing the questions. It's about having those really well-prepared responses.
It's about showing them what you bring to the table.
So let's revisit. Tell me about yourself.
Oh, yeah, that one always comes up.
And our source, they give a great example of how to keep this answer concise, how to focus on your background, your key skills, and then what specifically interests you about this opportunity, this company.
It's all about that connection.
Right. So then you've got, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
Or classic.
For strengths, remember, choose those that are directly relevant to the job and always back them up with examples. Concrete, specific examples.
And for weaknesses, choose a real weakness, something you're genuinely working on.
And explain how you're improving.
And the examples the source provides, they're really good because they're relatable. They're things that people actually struggle with, like staying calm under pressure or public speaking.
And it shows you're human,
Exactly. We all have things we're working on.
And then there's, why do you want to work here?
Yeah.
And, the source really emphasizes you got to show them you've done your research.
That you understand their mission, their values.
And that your goals align with theirs.
It's not just about finding any job. It's about finding the right fit.
Right.
And then there's, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, that future-focused question.
And the key here is to find that balance
between ambition and realism.
You want to show them you're driven, but you're also grounded.
And then finally, why should we hire you?
The big one. This is your chance to really sell yourself.
This is your closing argument.
Highlight those unique qualifications, those things that make you stand out, and explain how they directly address the company's needs.
Use those specific examples.
Don't just tell them, show them.
All right, so now for the fun part. Let's talk about those tricky questions.
The curveballs.
The ones that can really throw you off balance. And, as our source reminds us, these questions are often designed to see how you think on your feet.
How you handle pressure.
How self-aware you are.
It's about seeing how you respond when you're pushed outside your comfort zone.
So let's start with,